Since 2010, Maggie's List has focused on supporting conservative women who are running for office. They've endorsed more than 100 candidates, including Congresswoman Martha McSally, who's running for the U.S. Senate in Arizona, and Catherine Templeton, who is running for governor of South Carolina. Maggie's List takes its name from Margaret Chase Smith, a Republican from Maine, and the first woman elected to both the House and the Senate. When she was first elected to the House in 1940, there were just 8 female members. Today, there are 83, but only 22 women in the House are Republicans, and that means Maggie's List is challenged with not only fixing a gender gap in Congress, but also in its own party. Missy Shorey is the National Executive Director at Maggie's List, and she joins us from Dallas, Texas. It's so nice to have you with us. Missy, tell me a little bit about the focus for you and Maggie's List. What are your goals for 2018?
Well, thank you, Soledad. We really appreciate the opportunity to share our perspective. And for 2018, our goals remain consistent, which is to make sure that we increase the number of women who are in the U.S. House and Senate and serving at statewide levels, who are representing values of fiscal conservatism, less government, more personal responsibility, and strong national security. As we face the issues with Syria, etc., we see how important these issues truly are. These are uniting issues, and these are issues where women's voices need to be heard, especially from a conservative perspective. And that's why we work to get these women elected across the board and have been at this for years now. We
had a piece a moment ago that showed that Democratic women are very vocal about saying that their runs have been inspired by Donald Trump. What's the Republican women's inspiration? Are they inspired by Donald Trump? Is Donald Trump problematic for Republican women who want to run?
I think the word inspired really should be angered. That's why the left is doing this. They're unhinged when it comes to the president, to the point where they can't even see things in a reasonable perspective and have lost the ability to communicate constructively. So we're going to see in November how that anger plays out.
So you might call it anger, other people might call it inspiration, but at the end of the day, in the goal that you're trying to reach, and the people who are on the Democratic side doing the same thing are trying to reach, it's getting women out who want to run for office, which seems like it's challenging.
I think that 2016 shows a very important trend, which is when people have tried to distance themselves from the president, they are really kind of cutting off part of the party. And that is something where unity is important. Now, Martha McSally said it great when she was running, and she's now running for Senate, when she explained, look, I've used salty language in the past. Let's not kid ourselves. But she stands with the president because the people of Arizona stand with the president.
It sounds like you're saying people should embrace President Trump as their strategy if they want to be elected in 2018. So women who want to be elected should embrace President Trump, just like the Senate candidate in Arizona.
That would be my counsel at this point. But you know, this is the great thing about democracy. Every woman can run the race she wants to in her area. And at Maggie's List, that's one of the reasons that we go and have state chairs so that we know what is going on, say, and when you look at a Beth Lindstrom race in Massachusetts who's running against Elizabeth Warren versus, say, a Denise Lesko who's running in Arizona 8. Each woman is going to run her own race.
Often for women, fundraising is an issue. Is that an issue that doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican?
Oh, that is a universal issue. I couldn't agree more.
So what's the advice and the counsel that I assume people come to Maggie's List for both funding and for help in figuring out funding? What do you tell them?
Well, the first thing is we're glad they're reaching out and asking. Because if they're reaching out and asking us, that means they're reaching out and asking others. So that's the most important thing. Women they have 2 barriers when it comes to going into office that are right off the bat. Number 1, self-selection, saying, I need to be running, I need to be serving at whatever level of government they feel called to. That's very important. Then they need to have the experience. And then that experience needs to be backed in with, you have to run campaigns with a strong financial backing. And that's essential. And you know, it's really important that we're also seeing that the men in our party understand that as well as the women, and they're getting behind it.
Missy Shorey is the National Executive Director at Maggie's List. Thanks for talking with us. Appreciate it.